Hi, I'm Kevin Thomas, W1DED. I'm here with the contest crew, Bill, W9KKN, Dan, N6MJ, and Randy, K5ZD. We're here to talk about the CQ Worldwide Phone Contest coming up on October 26th. And with that, I'll pass it over to Randy and give us the typical summary for us. Thank you, Randy.
All right, well, the CQ Worldwide, of course, is probably the biggest, most popular contest in the world, at least in terms of participants. The phone is coming up the last weekend of October. It's 160 through 10 meters, the traditional bands. It's anyone can work any one contest, but you get 0 points when you work people in your own country. So pretty much it's all about working people outside of your country. And you get extra QSO points if the station is in another continent versus your own. And so you want to work people far away or in a different continent as much as you can. And then the multiplier on each band is the number of countries or entities that you work, and also the number of CQ zones that you work. You might have a line score that's something like 967 QSOs, 105 countries, and 37 zones or something like that. And you'd have some breakdown like that on each band. The one thing to be aware of is it's not just DXCC entities, but also the Worked All Europe country list as well. So things like Turkey, TA1, European Turkey counts as a country. Things like Italy Tango 9 counts as a country or a multiplier, that kind of thing. So just need to be aware. There's a few extra ones, but for the most part, your logging software will take care of keeping track of that. And even if you don't, when you send your login, the log checking software of the sponsor will take care of it. But there's single band categories, all band categories, high power, low power, which is up to 100 watts, and QRP up to 5 watts. There are also some overlay categories. There's one for rookie, which is someone who's been licensed for less than 3 years at the time of the contest. There's a youth overlay for people who are under 25 years old, or 25 years old or less. And then there's a classic overlay, which is one radio, maximum of 24 hours of operating time. So for people who either don't have a station capable of multiple radios or don't want to operate the whole contest, they can just pick any 24 hours and enter in that overlay category. So the key thing about the overlay categories is they are like a separate contest, a parallel contest. So you still have your traditional entry, let's say, all band, high power, single op, that kind of thing. And then the overlay category would be calculated separately and listed separately in the results. And I guess one last thing it's important to mention is there are assisted and unassisted categories. So unassisted is the traditional, you do everything by yourself, no help, no spotting. The assisted category, you do have spotting. And just so there's no confusion, you are not allowed to spot yourself in the CQ contests. You have, if somebody else spots you, great. You're also not allowed to ask people to spot you. So pretty much that's, sometimes that's the agony, is you have to get on and you're calling CQ and you're just like, hey, you're thinking to yourself, someone please spot me. But you can't ask people to do it. You just have to wait. So anyway, I think that's covered pretty much everything. All the rules and everything are on cqww.com. And you can also, after the contest, if you send the login, you can get access to your online your certificate, a PDF file of your certificate that you can download from there as well. I didn't talk about the exchange. The exchange is Signal Report and CQ Zone. So for the east coast of the U.S., it's 5905 Signal Report, and in the zone, if you're in Western Europe, it might be 14, Zone 14, that kind of thing. So helps to know the CQ zones.
And Randy, can you give us an idea of how many people might be participating and how that has compared to years past?
The CQ Worldwide Phone Contest typically gets more than 8,000 log entries. And when we look through the logs and just count up all the stations that are in there that have made more than 2 or 3 QSOs, it ends up being in the 25,000 range. So it's a pretty big contest, and that's part of what makes it so much fun. There's just so much activity from every part of the world that there's literally something to do every hour.
And how does that compare with WPX or ARRLDX?
I don't know the numbers exactly. WPX is a little less, although not that much. And then I think ARRL is quite a bit less, but mostly because ARRL is so focused on WVE, the US and Canada, that you just don't get quite the same participation from other parts of the world.
So I'm going to be really curious to hear how all of you are preparing for the weekend. But before we get into that, why don't we just go around and tell us where you're going to be, starting with Bill?
Yeah, so I'll be down at ZF1A. This year, we're going to be doing a high-power multi-single. It'll be with myself, NN1C Marty. It'll be with W4PA Scott Robbins and Pete Kilo 8 Papa Japan Germany.
I'll be operating this time from ND7K again. I haven't done this contest stateside in quite a while. I'm usually down in ZF1A with Bill and the gang. But this year for the WRTC points, I'm going to do single out from the West Coast, from ND7K, and I'm looking forward to it.
And I would probably be doing single out from home to get the WRTC points, but I'm going to take a haircut and go down to St. Kitts and operate V47T with a multi-2. So the best I can do is 800 points, so I'll give up a few, but that's okay. It's way more fun. So we're going to be multi-2. It's N2NT, K4ZW, and KM3T. So just 4 guys, keep 2 radios on the air for 48 hours. And the only concern we have right now is there's a small tropical low that's sitting out there and has some chance of developing into a tropical storm or potentially even a hurricane by the weekend. So even if we do manage to get to St. Kitts, we may get to spend a lot of time watching it rain, which would be a real problem because this station is very difficult to get to when it's raining.
So clearly all 3 of you have been at these stations before multiple times, so I'm sure that changes your preparation. But what are you doing to prepare for this weekend? Bill, I know when you first got on, you were working on an amp behind you, so I know that's one of the things you're doing. But what's the prep that you're doing, Bill?
So, yeah, it turns out this amp actually is just a casualty of CQP 2 weeks ago. So it's not actually part of that. Believe it or not, we got all of our amps working in ZF on the trip I did a couple of weeks ago with Marty. We went down and just sort of looked at the station, tried to figure out all the things that had been hit in the various storms and so forth, right? And we found a couple of things that if we had got down there, in a week from now and saw them, we would have, it might have been a showstopper. Maybe not quite, but, a few of them were pretty bad. So we got as much as we could done, and now I'm sort of just tying up all the loose ends here, making sure that we have antenna controls, making sure that we, sort of know what to expect.
And you said you're heading down on Tuesday.
That's the plan, yep.
And Dan, what about you?
Yeah, so I've been getting prepared, of course, for ND7K. So the 2 things that I've been working on the last week or so, I have a lot of recordings that I can listen to specifically for 2BSIQ. And so, if I'm bored, or which is a lot of the time, or I'm not doing anything else, I'll just throw on the recording in my headphones and listen to that for a little while. Earlier today, I was working on the couch from home. I hope my boss didn't see that, but I was working from home and I had my recording going in my ears the whole time just to kind of like get in that mindset. And then the other thing too that I've been doing a lot of is looking at logs. I've looked at a ton of logs already. I know propagation from W7 in and out, but I'm still interested to see what guys are doing last year in particular. I'm looking at a lot of the guys in W7, specifically if they're in Arizona, that area. But other W7s too. Like I've looked at a lot of the single band 10 meter guys, just trying to see how late were they on 10 meters working JAs in the evening. When did they start working Europe in the morning? So I've been looking at a lot of that kind of stuff too, just to reorient myself because conditions are so good that I can't really go back several years and look at those logs because they're not valid anymore. But last year was really, really good. This year should be good too. So I've been doing a lot of that, and then also even though I'm not going to ZF1A, I've been working a lot on their side too. I was able to put together an operator schedule for them, and I've also included in that operator schedule. I have the run rates from a V47T from last year when they were multi-single, and they made 12,000 queues. So that's all in the operator schedule, so they know how many queues they got to make every hour, and Bill's ready for it, and he's going to do it.
So the thing when it always sounds very glamorous and exciting to go operate a big station in the Caribbean, and there's no question it is, but it's the Forrest Gump box of chocolates thing every time, because you never know what you're going to get when you get there. And part of the reason we do Worldwide Phone is so we can get the station repaired, so when N2NT wants to come back and do Worldwide CW, it's all working. But for example, there was a hurricane earlier this season that went through, so we know there's at least a couple of antenna elements that are now vertical instead of horizontal. So we'll probably have to pop the antennas off the mast and get to where we can reach those. And then the other thing is we know the 160 antenna has fallen down, which is not a surprise. 160 is this great gift that keeps on giving in the Caribbean. Every time you go down there, you think, wow, we got to do something on 160. We got to get louder on 160. So you spend more time on 160 than you do on all the other bands added together. And then it still nets 100 QSOs or something like that. But we're really excited, and we're doing multi-2 for the first time from there. And it's a very small concrete block building, so it'll be interesting to see how we get on each other's nerves as we roll through the weekend with two guys talking all the time. As far as preparation goes, we have a Slack channel where there's some communication going on, and then a Google Doc where everybody has got a list of what they're supposed to bring down. And, when we get there, we'll MacGyver it so it works.
So it's not a big surprise that you guys are super organized. You've been preparing for a long time. What's your best advice for the mere mortals like myself that are planning on operating? What would you tell somebody who's possibly doing the contest for the very first time, or maybe they're going to do a part effort? What good advice do you have for them?
I think the best thing that you can do to prepare yourself is you need to have some kind of idea what propagation is going to be like. It's going to be kind of easy this time because we know that 10 meters is going to be really, really good. So if you spend most of your time on 10 meters, you're going to be doing just fine. But it's really tricky to figure out, when to be on 20, when to be on 80, when to be on 160. So if you want to put in like a semi-serious effort, you should have some way to understand what the propagation is going to be like. And the best way to do that is to check the bands before the contest. Even now we're only less than 2 weeks away from the contest. So the propagation is going to be very similar to what it is right now. So take a spin on the dial throughout the week. I like to send out a bunch of CQs on CW and check out the reverse beacon network, see what the propagation's like doing that as well. You can follow some of there's some skimmers out there, like ZF1A has a skimmer, ND7K has a skimmer. There's probably somebody in your general area that has one. You can kind of look at propagation from that aspect as well. So semi-serious, you should probably look at those things. If you're just going to jump in and have fun, you don't really have to do much preparation. Usually you start on the highest band open, 10 meters, then work your way down, work all the boys, have fun, and that's all you got to really do.
I would say the first thing that I would do if I were just getting started is maybe start with what's the goal. Is the goal to just have fun? Is the goal to, win something? Is the goal to just, hand out a bunch of QSOs? And just like Dan said, maybe look at some previous years and some other logs. Remember, all the logs for CQ Worldwide and a lot of the CQ, or I think all the CQ sponsored contests are public. You can just go on the website, download the log, take a look at it. Sort of, maybe go back in time on, the results and just see if you can find something that's similar station, similar person, similar situation, and see if there's, something that you could try to, go towards, right? Now, if you're in the situation where you are going to like a big station for the first time, or you're going to, like if you're going to the Caribbean or something like that, there's one piece of advice that I would give you is to, during the week, try to see if you can run and learn the station as much as you possibly can. Learn the propagation. See if you can get some of those really big, midweek pileups, and just try to, just get used to doing that for several hours. I mean, especially during the week sometimes it's almost more fun than the contest itself, because you're like the only guy on, and you get spotted, and you just have 100 guys calling you, and it's just pure pandemonium. So, the main thing I would say is test all your stuff out, test all your radios out, test your microphone, get a lot, maybe ask some people for some comments on your audio. I mean, are you too much lows, too much highs? Just get it tuned just right so that you have maximum punch. Make sure that you're not going to have something just completely unexpected happen. In your station. Just try everything out. I mean, that sort of. Last weekend was this California QSO party. A lot of people sort of think of that as the warm-up round for the worldwides, and in many ways it is, right? Because you're abusing your station as much as possible just to see sort of shake all these things out.
Those are a lot of really great tips. I think you can only make points when you're in the chair and working people. So in that regard, if your goal is to maximize your score, you have to make the best use of time that you possibly can. So you want to be as well rested as you can leading up to the contest. You want to have your family aware of what's going on, so you've got as much time cleared as possible. Not always you can be able to get the whole thing, but at least kind of know when you're going to be able to get on. One of the things I've done when I'm part-time is I will try to operate as much as I can in the first day, and then the second day I'm trying to operate the times I didn't get to operate in the first. And that way you kind of fill in some of the gaps for multipliers and bands and that kind of thing. There's very much a tendency at the top of the sunspot cycle for everybody just to go straight to 10 meters and stay there, which is really frustrating because 15 will still be great, 20 will still be great. Even the low bands actually can be pretty good, but everybody's on 10. And they don't come down to the lower band. So do not be discouraged if you're having trouble working as much as you would normally expect to on the low bands or even on 20, because there's just people just aren't there. The other thing that kind of surprises people, if you're doing a casual effort or 20 is hard. 20 is a hard band. It's very packed. It's got a lot of loud signals on it, a lot of QRM. It's amazing the hours just before sunrise where you can often find the band to be pretty quiet and you can get a spot and call CQ and get some answers. So, sometimes, especially if you don't have a big station, you just have to do things a little, try to work the shoulders at times when there might not be as many people on, that kind of thing. But I think just being well rested, having the time, and then remembering during the contest what your goal is, so that when you get tired, it's fine to get up and walk around. It's fine to go get a sandwich. I've done things where I go walk 3 miles or something during the contest. It really clears your head. But if you want to maximize your score, you got to come back and get in the chair and keep grinding it out. And and just keep remembering that in the end, when the scores all get stack ranked, you don't want to be behind some guy who is a lid. You want to beat him. So put the time in.
And Randy, what about a refresher course on the things not to do?
Not to have bad audio. I think Bill was absolutely right. The best thing you can do if you want to, probably what's one single thing that might help your score as much as anything, is just get somebody to listen to your audio and make sure it's clean. Both the recorded audio and microphone live audio, because I can't emphasize this enough. If you have a pileup of guys calling, the clean audio just cuts through. You will get through much more quickly and more often if you've got great audio. So that's one thing. The other thing is, if you are running people, please send your call every once in a while, because we're not all using the cluster. We don't all know who you are. And in a contest with just the zones, you'll have guys that are going, 5911, 5911, 5911, and 8 QSOs later, you're like, okay, well, all I know is he's probably in Brazil, but I still don't know who he is. And and generally what will happen is people will start going, what's your call? What's your call? If you just give it every once in a while, it takes no time at all. It's faster to say your call than it is to say, thanks for the QSO, QRZ. Just say your darn call, and we'll be fine. So that's one thing. And then use proper phonetics. I'll let you define what proper means, but at least use phonetics. It's always funny, especially now that 10's open and we have a lot of guys who aren't as experienced in contesting. They'll call without any phonetics, and we're just left trying to guess. Was that PFJ or PSK or whatever, that kind of thing. So that's the ones that are top of mind for me anyway.
So one thing that you might look into just a little bit is the IARU regions. or the ITU band plans in those regions and just sort of understand a couple things. Like, for example, in 40 meters, you're not going to get a lot of European action or even JA action above 7,200. And there are also going to be stations that can operate and will operate, particularly in the Caribbean, outside of the what's normally considered the U.S. phone band. And, they'll be, way down there, above, 70, 60, 70, 80 or so. And you might not be able to really work them. Don't find yourself just chasing a spot and clicking on it and calling into that, with your American call sign. I mean, most of the stations will just work you, but you're out of band technically. You shouldn't get those points.
And actually, in the CQ Worldwide log checking, we do remove QSO. If you're a USA station, you work somebody on 14.135 or 21.150, which is outside of your band, the DX station will still get credit for it and be very happy that you called them out of band. But you will not get any credit for it. That QSO will be removed for you. So those are QSOs for nothing. So just got to really watch out if you're clicking on spots, because it is so easy to just click yourself down into the band where you're not supposed to be.
Hey, Randy, I got a question for you in regards to how CQ Worldwide handles the situation. So let's say you got the guy running on 14.349.5, right? And that's technically out of band now. Do they monitor that situation as well, and do they take QSOs away for that?
We have in the past. That if we can get a recording where we know absolutely that the person's out of band, and they stay there for a long time, for an extended period, then that's pretty easy. We'll just go in and do the same thing. It's out of band, so all those QSOs will go away for them. The problem that we have around the world is different governments and hams in different countries interpret the band edge differently. So in the U.S., we're kind of trained that you have to keep your side bands inside the ham bands. But some governments don't seem to have a problem as long as your dial says something under, let's say 14.349.9, you're good. So it's very tempting to work those guys, but you just have to kind of pay attention to where you are. But you can lose those QSOs if you start running there and spend a lot of time. I'll just leave it at that. The other place that Europeans will lose QSOs, a lot of times in the Caribbean, we'll be CQing on like 7212 or 7225 or something like that. And Europeans will call us up there. Well, that's outside of the ham bands for them, because in Region 1, the ham band stops at 7200. So that's no different than if they decided to transmit on 14750 or something. They're technically out of the band. So we also try to find those and verify them with the SDR if we can, and then we'll remove those QSOs for Europeans. And we have disqualified some people for making too many contacts outside of the band, both USA guys and Europeans.
And I think it's important to note that all four of us on this talk today have done this before. We've called people out of band on accident. Those are not the guys that we're DQing, right? It's the ones that are doing a lot of it, like Randy said, and potentially even doing it intentionally. That's not okay. If we've all done it, we're all going to do it this weekend at some point on accident.
I should mention, do not just, if you realize you made a mistake, because that's usually what happens, you realize you made a mistake, don't delete the QSO from your log, because that loses it for the other guy, and because it's a not in log, he has not only the lost QSO, but the penalty as well. Just mark it as unclaimed or invalid. So different logging softwares do that differently, but in the end, what should show up in the log is X-QSO instead of QSO. So if you hit X dash in front of the QSO, we will recognize that and go, okay, you don't want to claim it for your log, but if the other guy claimed it, you'll get credit for it. Make sure the station's working. Nothing's worse than, and actually, you know what, another thing that's really simple is go through, if you're using an amplifier, go through the day before or 2 days before and mark all the antenna, the tuning settings down. Do that before the contest. So many times I've started a contest and I realize, oh gosh, I don't have any amplifiers marked. So I'll do it during the contest, which is okay, you can do it. But it's just a simple thing that why, waste the time. Go ahead and get maximum smoke during the week, and then you know what you're exactly where to tune things as you're going, and then make sure all your antenna combinations work. That there's actually antennas out there. In the Worked All European contest a few weeks ago, I couldn't work. My antennas on 80 were acting really weird, and I realized that on my Foursquare, one of the coaxes had unscrewed from the antenna. And with the Foursquare, because of the way it's all done, it doesn't really seem broken. You don't have a high SWR, but the antenna doesn't work very well. So that was a stupid one. I mean, that's an easy thing where you go, if I'd gone through everything and realized that it was broken the day before or the day of the contest, I could have fixed it. Instead, I fixed it on Saturday after I'd lost an evening.
Yeah, one really simple thing that you can do is also just go around your station and tighten up all of those connections. Like use a wrench. Your hand is not strong enough to properly made a PL259 connector. Add an extra quarter turn with a wrench, and like magically, so many interstation interference problems will just go away, as long as you don't have any loose connectors or connections anywhere.
Yeah, let's use a pair of pliers, maybe, is a better description than a wrench.
Yeah, sure. Pliers, wrench, same thing.
And Randy, when can people expect to see the official results?
So the log deadline for the contest is 5 days after the end of the contest. So you have 5 days to convert your log and get it in. It's amazing how many people send there. We'll get 2,000 or 3,000 logs in the first 8 hours. So a lot of guys finish the contest, hit export to Cabrillo, and go to the web page, upload it, they're done. Never have to think about it again. But get your log in on time. If you're late, your score will still show up in the results, but you won't be able to get an online certificate. So, it's simple enough. Just get your log in on time. Then the raw scores, which is the scores calculated from your log, but without any checking done yet, those show up usually the Sunday after the contest. So the log deadline ends on Friday night after the contest, and then usually within 48 hours we have the raw scores out. So you can very quickly get a feel for how did you do compared, to everybody else. Now, you still won't know exactly your order of finish because sometimes scores can change quite a bit when we actually do the checking, but at least you'll have a really quick feedback on how you did. And then the actual scores probably, I was just talking to K1IR about this today, will probably come out in February. And the reason it takes so long for the worldwide is we do have quite a process for doing checking and investigations of the logs in the background. That takes a certain amount of time. And then we try to send out some preliminary log checking reports so that people can give us some feedback that we didn't make some stupid mistake. And then there's a process we go through when we're notifying people of disqualifications and that kind of thing. And then there's a whole other process of getting an article written and the results compiled and everything. So it seems like a long time, but really February is only, November, December, January. So it's 3 months, 90 days after the contest, we should have the results out there. That's the goal anyway. At the top of the sunspot cycle, this is the time to get on the radio. Almost anything will work. You can work lots of people. It's just to me, I just love working guys far away, and you'll have plenty of opportunities to do that. And don't get hung up on score or whatever. Just try to work as many countries as you can and have fun. That's the key thing.
Yeah, I was just going to mention that Randy hit it on the head with that, the have fun thing. I was super fortunate to have dinner this past weekend with some of the big guns here in W6, including in that group was Jim N6TJ. And when I got there, he asked me, I had just done CQP the week before, and he asked me how did it go. I said, I was just doing one radio. It was a lot of fun, not to have to worry about 2BSIQ. And he reminded me hey, contesting is supposed to be fun. Sometimes doing the 2BSIQ is not fun. It's super stressful. So just whatever you're going to do, make sure that you do what you want to do within your limits. Don't push yourself too hard. Make sure you're having fun, and then it's going to be a great weekend.
Yeah. Just remember, this is the year, though.
Yeah, this is probably it's this one and maybe the next one, and let's just hope no solar storms. That's the key thing. The RTTY contest had fabulous conditions. It's 4 weeks later for the phone contest, so if we can get a duplicate of what we had for RTTY, we will all have a blast.
Best of luck to all of you. Thanks for joining me. This is Kevin Thomas, W1DED, the contest crew. See you next weekend.